Hello, good morning, happy Monday. My name's Aaron. I'm a buyer, seller, trader, collective integrator. This is my channel where I talk about all things in the hobby. As of late, I've been doing a lot of selling and a lot of buying. Welcome back to the channel. Hope everyone had a good weekend. I last week I said apologies for the upload. This week I got to apologize again. End of last week I got a little sick, so it's been kind of tough. And honestly, I think it's not the worst thing to just like take a break and really kind of think through priorities. And all right, who am I kidding? I recorded like a bunch of videos last week, 2 or 3, and I just didn't upload them because I figured they were just, sometimes I'll record and it just feels like I'm recording, and then I'll just rewatch them and I'm like, I don't really like it. So um those videos have a view count of 1, which is myself, and you guys are not blessed to see them. So today's video, we're going to talk about a couple of things. Why I've been selling very, very aggressively. Stuff from the, I would say, personal collection, supply, inventory. I've sold a small chunk of what I have related to Scarlet and Violet, minus Destined Rivals. I've kept some Surging Sparks. I've kept some Prismatic. And basically, I'm aggressively selling where I've sold everything that is not Sword and Shield booster boxes and some Sun and Moon Elite Trainer boxes like Team Up and Cosmic. Everything else that I have earmarked is for sale or has been sold. And I'm doing so because of 2 things. 2 reasons. One, as I spend more time in the hobby and in the market, I start to trust my instincts. Start to trust what's going to happen next less and less, meaning it's getting harder to predict. Where do we go from here? And I think, is this a video related to the top signal? That we're in a top signal? I think so. So that's one reason. We can talk about that a little bit more and why I believe so. Another reason is I'm not as liquid as I want to be. Oh my gosh, dude, a motorcycle on my left, a motorcycle on my right. What? And I'm on the farthest right lane. Anyway, I have my own gripes with motorcycles in California where they can just weave in and out of traffic. Liquidity, the importance of staying liquid, the importance of having enough money in the bank to do speculative buys, to buy when timing is right. And this video is going to have a couple of different components to it, and we can talk about that a bit more. So I've been selling. I sold a decent amount of the stash this weekend at a local show. Shout out to the first show I've been to, actually, from this organizer, the San Francisco Card Show. The venue in the area was a little spotty, not gonna lie. I parked by this dumpster around back of the rundown buffet next to the hotel next door, and it was very questionable. And when I had to bring all the stuff in to sell to one of our vendor friends, I asked his friend, shout out to Alex, to come help, because I was kind of worried to go out on my own, and also I didn't want to do multiple trips to that end of the parking lot. So went to a show this weekend, and just a quick recap of the show and what I saw. It was a show with about like 150 vendor tables, I would say. About a third were sports, so take that, sports. 2/3 was Pokemon, and I would say some of the vendors I definitely recognize. Some people who are local to the area in the Bay, they go to multiple shows a month, and some of the vendors I've never seen before. And I think nowadays it's pretty common, especially at local shows, to see more than half, if not more, vendors and tables of people who are net new, A lot of the assortment they have and supply they have, it comes from, Scarlet and Violet, post Surging Sparks. And so a lot of fresh blood, a lot of new people, a lot of new faces. And it's not a good or a bad thing. I think it's just an observation, because there's a lot of pros to that. Get more people in the hobby, get more people with money, get more people who have stuff to sell. Cons is, it eventually leads to saturation. So an interesting note. I went to the show primarily just to sell this collection, part of my collection. And I had a thought in mind related to what would I buy. About a couple of things for the PC. I'll start there. 2 reverse hollows from, I think, probably one of the Platinum era sets, an Electrode reverse hollow and a Voltorb reverse hollow here on screen. Plop, plop. Cute little guys. If you didn't know, I'm an Electrode collector, and Voltorb is just kind of tags along. So anytime I can find cheap cards, and these 2 cards were near mint, and they were $3. So reverse hollows from that area, uncommon or common cards, $3. I'll take it. I also bought a Nidoqueen from Delta Species, the stamp version, Dragon. I can't talk today. Dragon's Frontier. I paid a little bit more than I wanted to for it, but it was also near mint. It would probably PSA 9 actually. Great looking card. And if you didn't know as well, I'm starting a binder. I created a collection goal for myself. I'm starting a binder of the Nido King, Nido Queen family. We call it the Nido fam. Of all the cards, primarily in English, from all eras, and I'm just gonna have a nice, neat binder with, LP or better looking cards. The cards have to look good on the front at least. Every single card from base, which I don't really like those cards, all the way through Scarlet and Violet, and the cards that I've been eyeing the most are actually the Delta Species era, because they're arts that I never really grew up with, or I didn't really see them until I got back into the hobby, because it was at a time where I wasn't involved. I didn't really pay attention. So I'm slowly buying those cards from all eras: Heart Gold, Soul Silver, Delta Species, yada yada yada. So I bought that card, very clean up front and back, added its collection. Outside of that, Destined Rivals booster boxes and Brilliant Stars booster boxes. Now, with Destined Rivals, actually, I'll start with Brilliant Stars. I still think Brilliant Stars is probably the best one. I think it's one of the best sets in Sword and Shield. Outside of, I legitimately think that is the second best set in Sword and Shield. Not the one I like the most, the second best set. And I remember when the Charizard V was leaked by some Chinese outlet, like the Japanese version was leaked by some Chinese outlet, Chinese streamer. I remember seeing that card, and it's phenomenal. It's still phenomenal to this day. I love that artwork. I also think the trainer gallery is pretty strong, pretty good. And, for whatever reason, people like Lost Origin, people like Giratina, even though that's a disgusting Pokemon, Giant Centipede. People like Fusion Strike, which no one saw that coming. I still have my beliefs on Brilliant Stars, and at sub 500 a box, I would actually wager to say up to 600 market price. I still think in that area of price, it's a good buy. Now, I already hold a bunch. And so really for me, it's about an opportunity to continue to add to that stack of booster boxes. And so I'm a buyer. Admittedly, I did sell a case or two back in the day for like $250 when I didn't believe the market was going to be any more hot than it is. Sorry, there's a guy with his face standing up with his face down in his wheelchair. I'm driving through the Tenderloin, by the way, which you haven't looked it up. If you're not familiar in San Francisco, the Tenderloin is a very questionable area. I'll just leave it at that. So Brilliant Stars, I'm a believer in this set. I like the set. I still think it's cheap. And the Zard recently went to like $800, $900 in PSA 10. I still think it's undervalued. I just love the card. So, everyone has different opinions. Some people like Silver Tempest, some people like Fusion Strike, some people like Lost Origin. I like Brilliant Stars, and given the price point, I still think it's a good price. I'd actually wager to say sub $800 is probably a good buy for me. So I bought Brilliant. Destin Rivals, we're seeing a strong, should I say strong? We're seeing a retrace to like the 380s, 390s. I was able to buy them for 370, 380 this weekend. And one thing I'll say, a lot of these vendors, a lot of the new vendors, they stand so firm on market price, and it is so obnoxious at times, because it's like you're asking 100% of market, even though I'm going to pay in cash. It's like, dude, that's anyway. I'm entitled. I've been around for too long. Destin Rivals, and look, I have sold, or I am selling, basically all my Scarlet and Violet outside of Destin Rivals, Surging Sparks, and Prismatic. I am now a strong believer of Destin Rivals through and through. I was not before, pre-launch and then at launch, and the market's kind of made its point. And given Destin Rivals is still, print quality is still kind of like not guaranteed, not great. The more that Mewtwo does well, which I think the last sales are like 1,700 plus, 1,800 plus in a PSA 10. The more that Ethan's Ho-Oh and that Cynthia's Garchomp do well, the more I believe in this set. And so, I being around since the start of Sword and Shield, I am not a believer of diversification, of buying one of every set. I did that before because it made sense, buying everything at release when you didn't really know what was going to happen to the market, when you didn't really know what was going to be the best set. Outside of Evolving Skies. But now that I've kind of been through this full era, full cycle, I've come to realize that, like, unless I really want to collect one of everything, which, I can eventually do that, right? I don't have to do that today. I can do that whenever I want to. But unless I want to collect one of everything, one of every booster box, elite trainer box, whatever it is, then, I think it's okay and smart to pick the winner that you believe in and just double down in it. And for me, first is going to be Destin Rivals. Some people might pick Prismatic, and that's okay. But I think Destin Rivals is that set, and it pains for me to say because I sound like a modern shill. But I also would be lying if I said I didn't believe in it. So the current price right now, I think is low. Will it go lower? I don't know. We're literally only 4 months released from the set, but I have a strong feeling they're not going to continue to print booster boxes. And so no more booster boxes mean the first 2 runs of booster boxes are likely the supply that we get. And so if you believe in a booster box premium and you believe in the future, people are going to want a booster box and are willing to pay the premium, then it makes sense to buy them. Now, if I was purely a collector though, and on a budget, I would just buy an ETB and display that. I think the ETBs these days are phenomenal. They look great. And they're still, I don't want to say cheap because they're actually not that cheap. They're still affordable. Okay, I'm kind of lying. They're still a good buy, I think. So I went to the show, Brilliant Stars, Destin Rivals. Those 2 specifically I bought, and nothing else. I spent like 3 hours at this show, taking my time, going from table to table, had a lot of different opportunities to buy some slabs, saw some really cool and unique things. Actually, there's a Mega Sharpedo from one of the box collections in X and Y. Very low pop, I think maybe like 100 or 200. I took a picture of it. I'll show it here somewhere. Very cool, $450. Like, I'm not going to spend $450 on a Sharpedo. There's a Charizard Gold Star BGS 8, which I thought was relatively cheap. Shout out to Pokenon. He was selling it for like $5,300. And I looked at this thing through, and I was trying to decide, is there a play here to make this a PSA 8? And so what I would try to do is buy it, submit it to PSA, and say, I want a minimum grade 8, otherwise do not reholder this. But here's the thing about gold stars and cards of that era. When you check out the backs, the fronts of the cards, okay, it's actually not that hard to find a good front, decent front. The backs of the cards, here's where it gets really wonky, right? In that era, for whatever reason, the corners, they all like frill upwards and it looks like a bunch of whitening. And so, in my experience, in the gold stars I've seen, it's pretty common to see the back of these cards with very questionable corners. Like, and I don't mean like modern, like here's a white speck here and there. I mean like the full corner looking white from like the entire edge of the corner. And I think the corner got like a 7 or 7.5. And so after I stared at this thing for like 5 minutes, I decided there's in a PSA 8, right? This card was selling for like 8,000 plus. So you do the math, you buy it at 5,300, let's say I just pay a sticker. I go and get it reholdered, or I get it graded card reviewed at PSA, right? Let's just say I pay the 150 rate for that. So 180 for shipping. Let's just say I'm at 5,500 all in cost. If it comes back and I do get an 8, right? And I sell it, 5% goes to consignment at that range. I would make what, 10%, 10, 400, 70, 7,600. I would make $2,000. That was the mental math I did for like half the show when I looked at cards. Like, how much money can I make from this card so I can flip it into other cards I want to collect? But I couldn't do it. And I think what I'm finding too is as I start to sell off more things and have more money, it's kind of it's such a bad behavior. Then I want to start spending more, right? Start buying more. And I typically wouldn't buy something like that, right? Like it's not that it's the risk I'm okay taking. Like I've done that stuff before. It doesn't concern me. It's actually the price range. And I think I generally like to play in the realm of things that are like 3,000 or less, 2,000 or less. 5,000 or more, it's like a lot of money to be held up. You get it wrong, you might lose some money, but at the same time, those cards might go up because the market's so hot. So anyway, so that was me at the show. Didn't really get anything except for those booster boxes and those singles. Now I will share one interesting anecdote. I talked to 4 different vendor friends, and these are people who vend, I would say, at least 2 times a month. Ask them how they are, how are things. I like to just ask some of these vendors, like, how's business been today? What have you seen today? So it just gives me like a good understanding of at least what's going on in our local area. All of them said the same thing related to this. They are seeing that a lot of the cheaper stuff is moving. So slabs, singles, things. I think 2 of them said under $300. So in their guess, it's probably collectors, right? Probably people who have a certain amount of money who just want to buy cars and enjoy them, that kind of thing. But there's virtually no movement on the more expensive stuff. I'm talking about slabs, 500 plus, Moonbryon, Rayquaza, VMAX, Evolving Skies, ponchos, the things that essentially are, bigger ticket items. I was curious, like, why do they think that is? And the general consensus I got was, it feels like the only people who buy that stuff are other vendors, right? Other people who are trying to flip them or have business models where they can make more from them. And I found that interesting in that the sentiment around like who's buying the cheaper stuff and how much of the cheaper stuff is moving, maybe that's a sign. Maybe that's a top signal. Maybe that means the end is more close than you think. I mean, or it could be nothing. But it is an important thing to call out and to recognize as like you watch more content and you pay attention to market trends and people who make market videos, like boots on the ground, what's happening in person, it can be a leading sign to what can happen in the future in the market overall. So, does that scare me? Does that worry me? I mean, I will acknowledge it. It allows me to think through, okay, maybe I should consolidate a bit more. Maybe I should be a bit more liquid, have more money on hand in case something were to happen. And I think in terms of the top signal, things that I generally would be wary of. One, if everyone's making money, then that train does not always last, right? And one thing I've come to realize is the successful businesses and business people in the hobby, they will always make money at all points in the market, whether it's doing well or not doing well, whether we're at the start of Scarlet and Violet or right now. Like, they're always going to be in a position to make money because they know how to run a business, they know how to maneuver, and that kind of thing. It's the people who are usually net new, don't have as much capital, the ones who are probably chasing a lot of the ultra modern business, right? If all those parties, including them, are making money, then I would say proceed with a little bit of caution. And I don't mean like we're gonna crash. I don't mean like everything's gonna go to the bottom. I don't mean outside of like, it's a lot different when only some people are making money and doing well, right? It usually means we're on the rise. Wait, this way. We're going up. But when everyone seems to be doing well off, how long can that really last? So, part of the reason why I want to sell off a good amount of the collection is because I can deploy that money much faster on different things to make more margin than if I were to continue to hold and for some of the things I have to invest. That's obvious. But the second reason is, in case something happens, I want to be an opportunist. I want to buy collections. I want to be able to buy sealed. I want to be able to buy singles. I want to be able to buy when the people who are the most sensitive to market change, when they decide to get out. And this is just a general kind of like general takeaway. This is not specific to this market. It's not specific to any one person or any one people or anything like that. It's just more so, if you do not have the money to take on opportunity, then when the best opportunity comes, you're likely not going to be able to take it. So, my mindset these days has changed a lot given how hot things have been. And you would think that, I would be more excited and more bullish, as they say, on the market. And I am. I'm actually really excited for the next 5 years. But for right now, the next year, I'm kind of on higher alert because I don't think things are going to continue to last as, I shouldn't say that. I don't think it's going to continue to keep up as strong as it's been before. I think the next new low is going to be higher than the highest high from eras past. But I feel a retrace is going to come. And if I'm wrong, I'll have a bunch of money left in the bank. And I've sold off a bunch of things I don't like. If I'm right, then I will have opportunity. And it'll be great and glorious. And I'll have much more things to buy and sell. So it's kind of this concept of like being in a win-win position. But I think if you're always leveraged, if you always have some reliance on, let's say, vending to do sell-through, if you have some reliance to always have supply and you always have to try to sell through it, then, when the market changes, you're kind of you're at the most risk. So that's basically it. Like that's I don't have any other reason outside of I just want to be prepared. And I'm not, truthfully, I am not one of the ones that is generally prepared for these things. I usually have been catching trends and catching what other people are doing. And so I'm proud of myself to be able to take a step back a little bit and to slow down. Actually, okay, I'm lying. I'm not slowing down. I am selling off a bunch of things that I no longer need. And that's most of the stuff that is in Scarlet and Violet and most of the stuff that is not Sword and Shield. So that's where I'm at today. And as the sun is beaming in my face as I'm looking for a new direction in the hobby, we're in such an interesting time. Everyone is so confident. And there is a lot of growth to be had. The collection goal that I'm making, it's really to ground myself, honestly, and to give myself something to occupy the mind and not think about, how hard can I source like I did at Card Party. What's interesting, just to compare and contrast, 3 weeks ago or 2 weeks ago, I went to Card Party, stiff-legged as a stork, stiff-legged as a flamingo, literally just like in binders, face down, fat kid at the buffet type of thing, hours on end, looking at singles, spent a ton of money, got a bunch of gradles, brought them back, sent them all out. Literally sent 850 cards out for grading between CGC and PSA in the last 2 weeks, right? And then I go to this show this weekend, and I'm like burnt out. I condition check like 5 cards, and I'm just like, I don't know. We'll see. Is it gonna keep up? I'm not sure. But that's how fast these things can change, And I think the takeaway I would share is like, you don't want to be the one left hanging. You don't want to be the last one out. And if you're gonna get in fast, sell through, and don't be caught left holding the bag, as they say. I don't think we're that close from things retracing hard, but I do think when they do, it's going to hurt. And I don't want to be in that bucket. I don't want to be in that bucket of people who get wrecked. Anyway, top signals. I also think, and I stole this thought from Midweek Machamps. Shout out to Jake and Ricky. When everyone feels confident and so bullish and like arrogant on like the market and modern and sealed and this and that, and that's probably a good sign that taking profit, reeling it back a bit, being more strategic with the money you spend, maybe not over leveraging yourself and just kind of taking it slow. That's probably a good time or good sign to start doing that. All right, class is off. Thank you guys for watching. And I apologize for the lack of uploads. It's just been between being sick and just, having so many thoughts in the mind. And, sometimes I just want to take a break. But I can confidently say that, like, when you sell, it feels liberating. It feels good. It feels liberating. You feel like you trimmed a bunch of fat. I mean, I wish I trimmed a bunch of fat, but you get what I'm saying. It just feels like a huge weight is off your shoulders, and like you can make more decisions on the things that you can make better informed decisions and think clearly on what you actually want to do in the hobby. All right, that's it. If you have any Nido Kings or Nido Queens or anything in the Nidoran family, I'm looking to buy. I don't need base 2. I don't need, I'm really actually looking for the more obscure stuff. So if you have any, you let me know. I will gladly buy them from you. That's it for today's video. Thank you guys for watching, and take care of yourselves and be nice to each other. And I'll check you out. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.